On the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Zavon Soto, 24-03372, FY, council appearance.
Morning, Your Honor. Natalie Maycomber on behalf of the people.
Morning, Your Honor. Tara Nickel from the Ingham County Public Defender's Office on behalf of Mr. Sodo.
Mr. Soto, you can step further towards the camera. Thank you. Today was the date set for an arraignment. I do have a felony complaint here. The allegations, Mr. Soto, are that on or about November 7th, 2024 at 627 Sadie Court, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did allegedly, contrary to the law, commit the act in count 1 of open murder, statutory short form. And that you did allegedly murder a Braylon William Shepard, contrary to MCL 750.316. That's a felony with the maximum penalty of life in prison, and your DNA is to be taken upon arrest. There's a count 2, weapon carrying concealed, alleging that on or about November 7th, 2024 at 627 Sadie Court, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did allegedly commit the act of carrying a dangerous weapon, that being a pistol, whether concealed or otherwise in a vehicle operated or occupied by said defendant, that being a sedan, and that this was done contrary to MCL 750.227. That's a felony with a maximum penalty, 5 years in prison and $2,500 in fines. There's a mandatory forfeiture of the weapon or device required under the law. There's a count 3, weapons felony firearm. The allegations are that on or about November 7th, 2024 at the area of 627 Sadie Court, Lansing, Michigan, that you did carry or have in your possession a firearm, that being described as a pistol, at the time that you committed or attempted to commit the felony of murder under MCL 750.227B. That's a felony, maximum penalty 2 years consecutively with and preceding any term of imprisonment imposed for the felony or the attempted felony conviction. There's a mandatory forfeiture of the weapon or device required under the law. Do you understand the charges read there and the maximum penalty attached to each count, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you have the right to be represented by counsel. Ms. Nickel is here today to represent you solely for the purpose of your arraignment. You have the right to counsel at each court appearance, and if you're questioned by law enforcement. If you can't afford to hire an attorney, you can make a request to have the public defender's office appointed at the expense of the public. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You have the right to remain silent. Anything that you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty, plead not guilty, or stand mute. If you stand mute, this matter will continue all the way to a jury trial. You do have the right to a jury trial, and you have the right to the presumption of innocence. You're innocent until proven guilty. You have the right to require the prosecution prove your guilt by proving each element of the charges being brought against you beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the right to see, hear, and question anyone that's called to testify against you at trial. You have the right to call your own witnesses to testify on your behalf or present evidence at trial that you believe show defenses to these charges. And then you also have the right to waive your silence at trial and testify on your own behalf. Prior to proceeding to trial, you have the right to a preliminary examination, and you have the right to have that examination within 21 days of today's date being the date that you're being arraigned. You have the right at the time of that preliminary examination to have the prosecution establish that they have sufficient probable cause that if these felonies were committed and probable cause sufficient to charge you with the felonies. You're currently scheduled for a probable cause conference before Judge Cynthia Ward, November 22nd, 2024 at 8:30 in the morning. You have a preliminary examination before Judge Cynthia Ward in person at the court, November 27th, 2024 at 8:30 in the morning. You should have received a notice to appear for those dates and times. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
You also have the right to be considered for pretrial release from custody. We'll address your bond at the end of this hearing. What's your current home address?
2205 First Street, Jackson, Michigan. Zip code 49203.
Okay, what is your telephone number?
517-358-7564.
Are you employed?
No, Your Honor.
Are you currently on probation or on parole?
No, Your Honor.
Is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
The court will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Okay, I believe prosecution would like to address bond, and I know that Ms. Nickel will address bond as well. You can proceed at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, pursuant to MCR 6.106B, the people are requesting that the defendant be held without bond in this matter. The basis for this request is that the defendant has been charged with open murder, felony firearm, and carrying a concealed weapon. The allegations in this case include that the defendant gunned down the victim, Braylon Shepard, as Mr. Shepard was in his vehicle leaving the scene, and that after gunning down Mr. Shepard, the defendant fled the scene and was located later in Albion as a result of the police investigation and not as a result of the defendant turning himself in. The proofs in this case are overwhelmingly in support of a conviction, as there was an eyewitness and the incident was caught on video. Because of the overwhelming proofs and the defendant's attempt to evade law enforcement after the incident, the people believe that he poses a significant flight risk as well as a risk to the community. In the alternative, if the court is considering granting some sort of pretrial release, the people would request a bail amount of $1 million cash or surety, as well as a GPS tether with victim notification. However, Your Honor, it is our position that pretrial release is not appropriate at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Nickel, you can address bond.
Thank you, Your Honor. I do understand Ms. Maycomer's concern regarding the serious allegations that are presented to Mr. Sodo. My request to the court is to consider allowing Mr. Sodo to post a bond. He does not have a criminal history that he shared with me. I was not able to find any other pending cases in the iChat system that our office has access to look at individuals' criminal history. He is not currently working. However, he does have a position with a solar panel company to start in the next few days. I'm asking the court to consider posting a bond, and I have no objection to any bond conditions requiring a GPS tether.
The information provided to the court doesn't show any prior convictions, but it does say that there is was a warrant requested in 2020 for larceny and damage to property. It's unclear as to what the disposition on that file is, and that's out of Metro North Post, is what I see here. This is a felony file that alleges open murder, carrying a concealed weapon and a felony firearm with a maximum penalty of life based on the statements of the prosecution and the information provided in the affidavit of probable cause. The court will deny bond under 6.106B1I for interest of safety of the public. And he'll be remanded to the Ingham County Jail for his next court date. Let's see, Mr. Soto, do you have any questions for the court at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, any additional matters for the record, counsel?
Nothing from the people, Your Honor. Thank you.
Nothing from the defense. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You're all set, Mr. Soto.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good morning.
Thank you, same to you. On the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Devin Davis, this is 24-03304, counsel appearance.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tara Nickel from the Ingham County Public Defender's Office on behalf of Mr. Davis for arraignment only this morning.
Okay, Mr. Davis, you can step closer to the camera, please. Mr. Davis, I do have a felony complaint here. The allegations are that on or about October 31st, 2024, at the area of 120 West Michigan Avenue, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you allegedly committed the act in count 1 of police officer assault, resist, obstruct, causing injury. The allegations are that you did assault, batter, wound, resist, obstruct, oppose, or endanger a Garrett Newton, a police officer of the Lansing Police Department that the defendant knew or had reason to know was performing his duties and caused a bodily injury requiring medical attention or medical care to that person, and that this was contrary to MCL 750.81D2. Count 1 is a felony with a maximum penalty of 4 years in prison and or $5,000 in fines. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. Count 2 is domestic violence, alleging that on or about October 31st, 2024 at 4622 Donald Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, that you did allegedly make an assault upon a Dyka Monique Michelle Solis, a resident or former resident of your household, or an individual with whom you had a dating relationship, and that this was done contrary to MCL 750.812. Count 2 is a misdemeanor with a maximum penalty of 93 days in jail and or $500 in fines, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. There is, however, a habitual offender third offense notice. It says, take notice that the defendant was previously convicted of a felony or attempt to commit a felony, and that on or about June 15, 2020, he was convicted of the offense of assault with a dangerous weapon in violation of MCL 750.82 in the 29th Circuit Court for Clinton County, State of Michigan, and that on or about June 15, 2020, he was convicted of the offense of resisting, assaulting, obstructing an officer in violation of MCL 750.81D1 in the 29th Circuit Court for Clinton County, State of Michigan, and therefore defendant is subject to the penalties provided by MCL 769.11 that would enhance the penalty to twice the maximum sentence on the primary offense or a lesser term. The maximum penalty cannot be less than the maximum term for the first conviction. Mr. Davis, do you understand the charges read and the maximum penalty as well as the enhancement to the charge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. Anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to be represented by an attorney, and Ms. Nichols is going to represent you today for the purpose of your arraignment only. You have the right to have an attorney represent you at each court appearance and if you're questioned by law enforcement. If you can't afford to hire an attorney, you can make a request to have the public defender's office represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand your right to counsel?
Yes, ma'am, Your Honor.
You have the right to have a preliminary examination within 21 days of today's date. You have the right at the time of that preliminary examination to require the prosecution put forth evidence that would establish that they have sufficient probable cause that the felonies were committed and the probable cause sufficient to charge you with these felonies. If the matter proceeds beyond the preliminary examination, you have the right to have a jury trial, and you enjoy the presumption of innocence. That means you're innocent until proven guilty. You have the right to proceed to your jury trial and require the prosecutor prove each element at trial beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the right to remain silent at trial and not have that silence be used against you, or you can waive your silence and testify at your own trial if you'd like. You have the right to have witnesses subpoenaed to testify on your behalf. And you also have the right to see, hear, or question any other witnesses that are called to testify against you. Do you have any questions about those rights?
No, ma'am, Your Honor.
You're currently scheduled for probable cause conference before Judge Stacia Buchanan, November 21st at 9:30 in the morning. You have a preliminary examination before Judge Buchanan, November 27th at 8:30. You must appear in person for the preliminary examination. Did you get a notice to appear for those dates?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that preliminary examination will proceed at that date and time unless you waive the timeline or the court finds good cause to go beyond that 21 days, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you currently employed?
No, Your Honor, I'm on Social Security disability from mental illness.
Okay,
I have
and what's your home address?
1395 Kemper Avenue, Holt, Michigan. And I don't exactly know the zip code.
1395, give me the street again.
Kemper, Kemper Avenue, Holt, Michigan.
Okay. What's your phone number?
517-619-7177.
Are you currently on probation or on parole?
No, Your Honor.
Do you have any other court dates pending at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Is he requesting court appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'll enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Okay, counsel, you can address bond.
Thank you, Your Honor. As Mr. Davis stated, he is on disability for a mental health condition. He is also a veteran of the U.S. military. He does have an appointment with CMH to continue treatment and address his mental health issues this coming Tuesday. We are asking the court to consider release of Mr. Davis on a personal recognizance bond. Thank you.
Okay, the only convictions that I see were the ones that were listed in the habitual offender notice, although I do see that he was charged other times with some assaultive crimes, even as recently as 2021, but without conviction. Let's see. And then I do see that there was a warrant requested. I don't know what's going on here. 2023 obstructing judiciary or Congress. But there's no disposition as to what's going on with that. This is a police officer assault and domestic violence. The court is going to grant the request for a personal recognizance bond, but with GPS tether. Bond will be set in the amount of 1,000 personal recognizance with GPS tether and victim notification if possible. While out on bond, you must first remain compliant with your community mental health appointments and all requirements provided to you from Community Mental Health. Okay, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Also, while out on bond, you're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior.
Yes,
You're not
Your
to
Honor.
use, purchase, or possess drugs or alcohol unless you have a valid prescription. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to use, purchase, or possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. You're not to have contact directly or indirectly with the alleged victim, that being a Dykema Monique Michelle Solis. You're not to be within 1,500 feet of wherever she is. You understand that, sir?
Yes, ma'am, Your Honor.
You're not to have contact directly or indirectly with Miss Solis. That means you can't have anybody else deliver any messages to her. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release from custody. Monday is a holiday, so you'll report by Tuesday, okay?
Yes, ma'am, Your Honor.
So you have two things that you need to do on Tuesday. You got a community mental health appointment, and you need to check in and report to pretrial services. Do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. Do I have to pay money for the tether, or do they release me today with it on me, or do I go pay with a credit card, or what happens from here?
There is a cost associated with the tether, but you may be eligible for assistance, and you can get more information from Ms. Nickel if you need that, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
No, ma'am, Your Honor.
Okay, you're all set, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you.
Okay, on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Olivia Helms in 24-03076. Appearance for the record, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tara Nickel from the Ingham County Public Defender's Office on behalf of Ms. Helms for arraignment only this morning.
You're Olivia Helms.
Yes, ma'am.
You can remove your hood, please. Okay, today's the date and time set for an arraignment. I have a felony complaint here. The allegations, ma'am, are that on or about August 26, 2024, at the area of 1410 Pontiac Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you allegedly committed the act of assault with a dangerous weapon, that being a felonious assault, and that you did make an assault upon a Misty Perkins with a dangerous weapon, that being a kitchen knife, but without intending to commit the crime of murder or to inflict great bodily harm less than the crime of murder, and that this was done contrary to MCL 750.82. That's a felony. The maximum penalty is 4 years in prison and or $2,000 in fines. Your DNA is to be taken upon arrest, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. You understand the charge and the maximum penalty, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to counsel. Ms. Nichols is going to represent you today for your arraignment only, but you do have the right to be represented by an attorney at each court appearance, and you have the right to be represented by an attorney if you're questioned by law enforcement. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, you can make a request to have the public defender's office appointed to represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty, plead not guilty, or stand mute. If you stand mute, the matter will continue all the way to trial. You have the right to have a preliminary examination, and you have the right to have that examination within 21 days of today's date, unless you waive that timeline or the court finds good cause to go beyond that timeline. You have the right at the time of your examination to require the prosecution to put forth evidence to establish that they have sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause sufficient to charge you with that crime. You have any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
You're currently scheduled for probable cause conference before Judge Stacia Buchanan, November 21st, 9:30 in the morning. You can appear via Zoom or in person for the probable cause conference. Your preliminary examination is scheduled in person at the court before Judge Buchanan on November 27th at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you should have received a notice to appear for that date. Did you get that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right, again, to jury trial, and you have the right to the presumption of innocence, so you can require the prosecution prove you're innocent beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. You have the right to remain silent at that trial and not have that silence be used against you. You can waive silence and testify at your trial if you'd like. You also have the right to subpoena witnesses to testify for you and present evidence that you believe show a defense to the charges being brought against you. You have the right to see, hear, or question any other witnesses that the prosecution intends to call to testify against you. Do you have any questions about those rights?
No, ma'am.
You have the right to be considered for pretrial release from custody. We'll address your bond in just a moment. Is she requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
The court's going to enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. What's your current home address?
9580 Greenview Ave.
Are you employed?
No.
Greenville Ave, is that in Detroit?
Yes, ma'am.
What's your phone number?
517-894-8017.
Are you on probation or on parole?
No, ma'am.
Do you have any other court dates pending?
No, ma'am.
Have you missed court in the past?
I believe so.
Are you employed?
No, ma'am.
How do you support yourself?
Right now I'm just basically just looking for a job.
You can address bond counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. As Ms. Helms stated, she's not currently working and does not have any other pending matters in this county as far as I was able to find in no other county in the state of Michigan. I was not able to pull up a specific history, but Ms. Helms did mention what she had told the court, that she believes she may have missed a hearing in the past. However, I'd still ask the court to consider a first recognizance bond or in the alternative, a low 10% bond. Thank you.
She does have some prior criminal history, but I don't see anything assaultive in nature. And this is an incident allegedly having occurred several months back. Did you turn yourself in on this? How did you get in custody, ma'am?
I got picked up from Detroit.
Bond is set in the amount of 2,500, 10%. While out on bond, you have the following conditions. You're not to have contact directly or indirectly with Misty Perkins. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're not to be within 1,500 feet of wherever she is. You're not to cause anyone else to make contact with her on your behalf. Also, while out on bond, you're not to use, purchase, or possess drugs or alcohol unless you have a valid prescription. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon, and you must report to pretrial services in Ingham County within 48 hours of your release. But because this is a holiday weekend, you will report by Tuesday. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions at this time?
Oh, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
You're all set, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sure. On the record, in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Francisco Lakota White. Counsel appearance.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tara Nickel from the Ingham County Public Defender's Office on behalf of Mr. White for arraignment only this morning.
You're Francisco Lakota White.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a felony complaint here. The allegations are that on or about November 7th, 2024, at the area of 824 Comfort Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you allegedly committed a home invasion in the first degree, and that you did break and enter or enter without permission a dwelling located at 824 Comfort Street, and while entering in, present in, or exiting, did commit an assault. And while entering in, present in, or exiting the dwelling, a Danielle Josephine Kennedy was lawfully present therein, and that this was contrary to MCL 750.811.082. Count one's a felony. The maximum penalty is 20 years in prison and or $5,000 in fines, and a consecutive fine or sentence can be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of a consecutive sentence may be imposed for any other conviction arising out of the same transaction. Count 2 is assault by bodily harm less than murder or strangulation, alleging that on or about November 7th, 2024 at 824 Comfort Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did allegedly commit the assault upon a Danielle Josephine Kennedy by strangulation or suffocation, contrary to MCL 750.84. Count 2 is a felony and the maximum penalty is 10 years in prison or $5,000 in fines. Your DNA is to be taken upon arrest, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. There's a count 3 of domestic violence and or knowingly assaulting a pregnant individual, third offense notice, alleging that on or about November 7th, 2024 at 824 Comfort Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did make an assault or assault and battery upon a Danielle Josephine Kennedy, an individual with whom you had a child in common, or an individual with whom you had a dating relationship. There is a third offense notice. It says, take notice that the defendant was previously convicted of assaulting or assaulting and battering a individual with whom he had a dating relationship and or with whom he had a child in common by violating MCL 750.1671L, a law substantially corresponding to MCL 750.81 on or about May 15th, 2023, and by violating MCL 750.812 on or about March 21st, 2016, and therefore upon conviction will be subject to an enhanced sentence under MCL 750.815. That enhances count 3 to a maximum penalty of 5 years and or $5,000 in fines. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. Count 4, interfere with electronic communications, alleges that on or about November 7th, 2024 at 824 Comfort Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did willfully and maliciously prevent, obstruct, or delay by any means the sending, conveyance, or delivery of an authorized communication by or through a telephone or telephone line contrary to MCL 750.8505A. That is a felony. The maximum penalty is 2 years and or $1,000 in fines. You understand the counts 1 through 4 that was read, as well as the habitual offender notice and, I'm sorry, the third offense notice and the maximum penalties on each count?
Yes, ma'am, I understand now.
You have the right to counsel, and Ms. Nichols is going to represent you to be arraigned today, but you do have the right to have an attorney represent you at all of your court appearances. You have the right to be represented by an attorney if you're questioned by law enforcement, if you can't afford to hire an attorney. A court-appointed counsel can be appointed at the expense of the public. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything that you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You can plead guilty, plead not guilty, or stand mute. If you stand mute, the matter will continue all the way through to a trial. You have the right to have a preliminary examination in this matter, and you have the right to that exam within 21 days of today's date, unless you waive the timeline or the court finds good cause to go beyond the 21 days. At the time of your exam, you have the right to require the prosecution establish that they have sufficient probable cause that the felonies were committed and probable cause that you committed these felonies. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You're scheduled for probable cause conference before Judge Cynthia Ward on November 22nd at 8:30 in the morning. You have a preliminary examination before Judge Ward in person at the court November 27th at 8:30. And you should have received notice to appear and Zoom instructions for those dates and times. Did you get that, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Okay, let's see. At the time of your trial, you have the right to silence and not to have that silence be used against you. You can waive your right to silence and testify at trial if you like. You have the right to subpoena witnesses to testify on your behalf, and you have the right to see, hear, and question any other witnesses that the prosecution intends to call to testify against you. Do you have any questions about those rights?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Thank you. Is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
The court's going to enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Are you employed?
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
I have two jobs. I work for Residential Options, which is a subcontractor through Community Mental Health doing direct care for individuals with developmental disabilities. I also am a security guard at the Lansing Mall.
What's your home address?
924 Houghton Street, Lansing, Michigan.
What's your phone number?
517-703-3033.
Repeat that for me again.
517-703-3033.
603. Thank you. Are you currently on probation or on parole?
Oh, ma'am.
Do you have any other criminal matters pending at this time?
No, ma'am. I have a parking ticket that I am on a payment plan for that has to be paid, but that is it.
Have you missed court in the past?
No, ma'am.
Counsel, you can address bond.
Thank you, Your Honor. As Mr. White stated in his previous interactions with the criminal justice system, he has appeared for those court hearings. He is on a payment plan for his ticket. We do understand that he's had issues with this particular complaining witness in the past. However, if the court is unwilling to issue a personal recognizance bond, I'm asking the court to consider a 10% bond with any other bond conditions the court deems appropriate. And he is also paying up on his child support and is current on that obligation.
For some reason, I was not provided his criminal history. However, I do have a bond recommendation from the prosecutor's office. And when I asked Mr. White, had he ever missed court before, I knew the answer. I was wondering if he was going to tell me the truth. He has a record of non-appearance at court. I didn't ask you to speak now, or flight to avoid prosecution. So personal recognizance bond will not be appropriate. In additional information that was provided is that there's a concern for the protection of the public due to this being an alleged crime, charging violence towards another person, that the defendant has a history of violent behavior towards this victim and a history of threatening or harassing behavior towards victim or witnesses, and that this was an intimate partner relationship. Other factors associated with the risk of lethality in domestic assault situations that the prosecution believes present here is that there was a history of stalking behavior, recent separation or divorce, escalation of violence or risk-taking over time, acute depression or unpredictable and violent mood swings, a crime committed in the presence of children. It also says the defendant has assaulted this victim, the mother of his two children, for over a decade. All of his prior assaultive domestic convictions are against the same victim. Defendant has abused this victim in front of their children in common, including this event, and has even physically assaulted the 11-year-old child directly. In this instance, the allegations are that after the defendant physically assaulted the victim, he took both of their children from the home and drove away with them. The people are requesting $100,000 cash bond reflecting ongoing pattern of criminal activity, specifically violence, physical violence against the victim in the presence of children, that there's a risk of community safety and a record of non-appearance for court and bond violations on previous cases, even while on GPS tether. If bond is posted GPS tether with victim notification zones and notifications are also being requested, the court will grant the bond requested by the prosecution, $100,000 cash surety bond with GPS tether and victim notification. While out on bond and while in the custody of the Ingham County Jail, you're not to have contact directly or indirectly with Danielle Josephine Kennedy. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
The reason why I'm making that specification is because I don't want you to believe that you can make jail calls to the protected party, or that you can have anyone else call on your behalf to deliver a message to the protected party. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You're not to use, purchase, or possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon or ammunition. You're not to travel outside the state without approval of the court. You're not to use drugs or alcohol without a prescription. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You will be required to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release. Victim notification with GPS tether is ordered. You're not to be within 1,500 feet of the victim. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions about your bond conditions?
No, ma'am.
Is that a no?
No, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
You're all set, sir. Okay, on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Gerald Allen Dinkinbring or Dinkinbring. This does not have a file number yet. Counsel appearance.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tara Nickel from the Ingham County Public Defender's Office on behalf of Mr. Dinkinbring for arraignment only this morning.
Okay, Mr. Dinkinbring, I do have a misdemeanor complaint here. The allegations of that on or about November 8th, 2024 at 5831 South Martin Luther King, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you allegedly committed the act of assault or assault and battery, and that you allegedly made an assault upon the following person, that being a Megan Nicole Kirkbride, contrary to MCL 750.811. That's a misdemeanor. The maximum penalty is 93 days in jail and or $500 in fines, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. You understand the charge and the maximum penalty, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to counsel, and Ms. Nichols representing you today so that you may be arraigned, but you do have the right to have an attorney represent you at all of your court appearances. And you have the right to have an attorney represent you if you're questioned by law enforcement. If you can't afford to hire an attorney, you can make a request to have the public defender's office appointed at the expense of the public. Do you have any questions about that?
No, ma'am.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty, plead not guilty, or stand mute. If you stand mute, the matter is going to continue all the way to a jury trial. You do have the right to jury trial in this matter. You have the right to presumption of innocence. So that means that you're innocent until proven guilty. You have the right to require the prosecution prove your guilt at a jury trial. They would have to prove each element of the charge being brought against you beyond a reasonable doubt. You can remain silent and not have silence be used against you, or you can waive your silence at trial and testify if you like. You can have the right to see, hear, or question any of the witnesses the prosecution intends to call against you. You have the right to have witnesses subpoenaed to testify on your behalf or present evidence that you believe show a defense to the charge being brought against you. Do you have any questions about those rights?
No, ma'am.
Are you employed, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
Got the Department of Defense in Battle Creek.
What's your home address?
5831 South Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Lansing, Michigan, 48911.
Does Demetrius Smith live there?
Say that again?
Is that the address for Demetrius Smith?
I don't know
I'm
who
sorry,
that
is that
is.
the address for Nicole Kirkbride? I have the wrong name here. Is that the address for Nicole Kirkbride? Why is this in this?
Temporarily, yes.
Okay, well, where are you gonna stay during the pendency of this matter? Because if that's where she stays, you can't stay there.
I'll stay with my son, who's not,
Where's
doesn't live
that?
there. Somewhere in North Lansing.
You don't know the address?
I do not. I haven't even talked to him yet.
What's your phone number?
517-930-4631.
Okay, so this matter has not been yet set for a next court date, which will be a pre-trial, so I can't provide you with that at this date and time. So one will be mailed to you. You need to provide the court with an updated address no later than Tuesday, so that we know where to mail your court date. Otherwise, it's going to go to the address that we have at 5831 South Martin Luther King, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
And not guilty plea will be entered on your behalf. I don't see that he has any other prior criminal history. You can address bond.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am requesting the court consider releasing Mr. Dinkinbring on a personal recognizance bond. As stated, he doesn't have any prior history. He does have a job and lives in the area. I understand it is an assaultive crime. I anticipate that Mr. Dinkinbring will appear for court and not be a risk to society if released on bond.
A bond is set at the amount of 500 personal recognizance. While out on bond, there's a no contact order in protection of a Megan Kirkbride. You're not to have contact directly or indirectly with Megan Kirkbride. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You're not to be within 1,500 feet of wherever she lives, works, or goes to school. You're going to provide an updated address as to where you'll be staying no later than Tuesday. You're not to use, purchase, or possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon while you're on bond. You're not to use or possess alcohol, marijuana, or a controlled substance. You're not to travel outside the state without getting approval from the court. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. Do you have any questions about your bond conditions?
I do not, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
You're all set, sir. And this is the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Demetrius and Tion Smith. council appearance.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tara Nickel from the Ingham County Public Defender's Office on behalf of Mr. Smith for arraignment only this afternoon.
Okay, Mr. Smith, I do have a felony complaint here. And the allegations are that on or about November 8th, 2024, at the area of 2218 Rio Road, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you allegedly committed the act in count 1 of domestic violence and or knowingly assaulting a pregnant individual. Third offense notice. The allegations are that you did make an assault or assault and battery upon a Latoya Latrice Montgomery, a resident or former resident of your household or individual with whom you had a dating relationship, and that this was contrary to MTL 750.812. There's a third offense notice. It says take notice that the defendant was previously convicted of assaulting or battering his spouse, former spouse, individual with whom he had a dating relationship, and an individual with whom he had a child of common, or a resident or former resident of his or her household, or by knowingly assaulting a pregnant person in violation of MCL 750.813 on or about May 12, 2010, and by violating MCL 750.812 on or about June 16, 2003, and therefore upon conviction will be subject to an enhanced sentence, making the maximum penalty now a felony. 5 years in prison and or $5,000 in fines, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. There's an habitual offender fourth offense notice. It says take notice that the defendant was previously convicted of 3 or more felonies or attempts to commit felonies, and that on or about March 9, 2018, he was convicted of the offense of child abuse, the second degree, in violation of 750.8163B in the 56th Circuit Court for Eaton County, State of Michigan. And that on or about August 24, 2011, he was convicted of the offense of possession of a controlled substance less than 25 grams in violation of 333.74032A5 in the 56th Circuit Court in Eaton County, State of Michigan. And that on or about November 3rd, 2004, he was convicted of the offense of police officer assault, resisting, obstructing in violation of MCL 750.81D1 in the 30th Circuit Court for Ingham County, State of Michigan, and therefore upon conviction will be subject to an enhanced penalty. That enhances the penalty in count 1 to life if the primary offense has a penalty of 5 years or more, or 15 years or less if the primary offense has the penalty of under 5 years. The maximum penalty cannot be less than the maximum term for the first conviction. Do you understand the charge in count 1, the third offense notice, and then the habitual offender fourth offense notice, sir?
Excuse me?
Do you understand the charge that was read?
No, I don't, Your Honor. I'm being honest with you, I
Okay.
don't.
And I'm not asking you, did you agree with the charge? My question is whether or not you understand that you're being charged with a domestic violence, that it's being charged as a third offense, meaning that you have previously been convicted of domestic violence 2 other times, and that because of your criminal history, they are now charging a habitual offender fourth offense notice, so that domestic violence generally is a 93-day misdemeanor. Because you're being charged as a third offense notice, your maximum penalty is now a felony 5 years and $5,000. And then because they tacked on the habitual offender fourth offense notice, that now enhances the domestic violence to a maximum penalty of life if the penalty of the charge is 5 years or more. And again, I just told you that it's now a 5-year felony for you. You understand the maximum penalty, the third offense notice, and the habitual offense notice? Do you understand those?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have the right to counsel. Ms. Nichols is representing you today to be arraigned. You have the right to have an attorney represent you at all of your court appearances and court dates. You have the right to have an attorney represent you if you're questioned by an officer. If you can't afford to hire an attorney, you can request to have the public defender's office appointed at the expense of the public. Do you understand your right to counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to have a preliminary examination, and you have the right to have it within 21 days of today's date. You have the right to require the prosecution establish that they have sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause sufficient to charge you with these crimes. If this matter proceeds beyond a preliminary examination, you have the right to a trial and you have the right to jury trial. You have the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. They would have to prove each element of the charge being brought against you beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. You can remain silent at trial and not have silence be used to prove or imply that you're guilty. You can waive your silence and testify at trial if you like. You can subpoena witnesses to testify on your behalf. And you have the right to see, hear, and cross-examine any other witnesses called to testify against you at your trial. Do you have any questions about that?
No.
Okay, are you currently on probation or on parole?
Oh, ma'am.
Are you employed?
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
At Wendy's in South Lyons. It was off the Kalamazoo. We got to work in South Lyons for 3 months till the store is remodeled. I do it like 6 to 4 in the morning. 6 to 4 in the afternoon.
Where do you reside?
4011 Claiborne.
Repeat that.
4011 Claiborne.
Okay. What's your phone number?
882-8983.
Area code 517.
Yes, ma'am.
You have a preliminary examination. I'm sorry, let me give you a probable cause conference first. You have a probable cause conference before Judge Buchanan, November 21st at 10 a.m. And then you have a preliminary examination before Judge Buchanan, November 27th at 9 a.m. in person at the court. Did you get your notice to appear for that date?
Yes, I did, ma'am.
Do you have any other criminal matters pending?
No, ma'am.
Have you missed court in the past?
Probably years ago. I thought I probably was a teenager.
You can address bond counsel. And is he requesting court appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, he is. With respect,
Entered for him.
thank you. With respect to bond, we are asking the court to allow Mr. Smith to post a bond. The maximum penalty is based on the enhancements of both the third and the habitual offense notice. The allegations themselves don't rise to a level where a no bond hold would be appropriate. In that case, we are asking the court to consider a 10% or cash surety bond in this matter. Thank you.
You have his prior criminal history. There's a number of assaultive actions, primarily domestic violence charges and convictions, obviously noted by the habitual offense notice that was attached, as well as a prior aggravated stalking on his criminal history. And then a recent, this year, He was recently charged with a domestic violence that looks like it was dismissed. So the court does have a concern about the threat to the public, primarily to the victim. So personal recognizance bond will not be granted. I will issue a bond in the amount of $2,500 cash surety with GPS tether. Victim notification if possible. You have the following conditions, sir. You're not to have contact or directly or indirectly with LaToya Montgomery. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
That includes jail calls. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
You're not to travel outside the state. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You're not to possess a firearm, ammunition, or any other dangerous weapon. You're not to use, purchase, or possess alcohol or drugs unless you have a valid prescription. And you need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release from custody. Do you have any questions about your bonds?
No, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
You're all set, sir.
All right.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.